Welcome to this Saturday travel and history tip, and we will be going to the city of Shreveport, Louisiana, which sits on the Texas border. We went to a fabulous, not so known of place, Shreveport Waterworks Museum at the McNeil Street Pumping Station. And this waterworks began in 1887. You may take a guided tour or a self-tour, and we took the self-guided tour. This place is absolutely a worthwhile stop. And here's a little introduction. The McNeil Street Pumping Station is the home of the Shreveport Waterworks Museum and has the rare honor of being both a National Historic Landmark and National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. Opened in 1887 as the city's first water plant, it added filtration in 1890, an unusual technology at that time, and in 1911 was among the earliest facilities in the nation to use chlorine in the treatment process. Before there was a water plant, Shreveporters were just on their own for their water for almost 50 years, and the water supply for most people was rainwater from the roof collected into a cistern. In 1887, the Shreveport Waterworks Company opened for business with a franchise from the city, and this arrangement continued until 1917, when the city bought the plant. The steam pumps were not finally retired until 1980. Today, the entire physical plant remains in place after more than 100 years of service and is a rare surviving example of an intact steam-powered waterworks. Even if you're just going to be passing on I-20 across Shreveport, take off and spend at least an hour at this historical landmark. But now let's take you on a little tour. As I said, you could spend an hour here, but we actually ended up spending about 2. Technically, you could spend a half a day or more if you read every sign and really took in all the fabulous information that is available. Number 1 is the machine shop, and you can see a lot of the old tools they have kept there in this front room, and this is where you enter the museum. As we walk through the machine shop, we pass on into what is sort of the makeshift gift shop, and it's actually the number 2 room, the boiler room. In there, the gentleman who was working there gave us a demonstration of this water filtration system that they have set up.
It was the first stage. As the water runs through there, lets all the sediment fall, most of the sediment fall down to the bottom. Filters in the second stage and pull out more sediment, and also the taste and smells out of the water. Shreveport was one of the cleanest, had some of the cleanest water in the whole entire country in the late 1800s and early 1900s.
Really? That's cool.
The Hind boilers that you see today were installed in 1917 to replace the earlier boilers and consist of 3 separate boilers that were in use for 63 years until 1980. The largest room is number 4, the main pump room, and this was where we spent a good deal of time. The tour guide actually is able to turn on this entire system and everything just pumps along. It is really fun to watch. People of all ages will certainly enjoy seeing all the wheels and pumps going on. The oldest pump, this number 1 low service pump and the similar one next to it, brought in the raw water. The steam pumping engine is the oldest one here. It was installed in 1898. Both of these low service engines are thought to be among the sole survivors of their type by the Smithsonian. Next stop is the old high service pump room, and this room is part of the original structure. The steam pump in here is from 1900 and is the second oldest machine here, as well as being a very rare surviving example of this design from the Worthington Company. After looking at all the great information in room number 5, we walked outside to area number 6, which includes the settling basins and aerators. The settling basins were the first step in purifying the incoming raw water and were part of the original construction in 1887. Quote, treatment of the raw water in 1887 consisted only of pumping the dirty water into these settling basins and letting whatever contaminants that would do settle out to the bottom. The settling basins in 1887 were made of brick, laid over clay, and were remodeled several times until reaching their present concrete construction in 1926. Returning from outside and passing through room number 5, we entered room number 7, which is the filter room. The filter room was not part of the facilities constructed in 1887. The company's contract with the city required them to install filters at McNeil, but they didn't, and for some unknown reason, the city accepted the work anyway. Possibly this was because the real driving force behind the construction of the waterworks was not sanitation, as we might think nowadays, but fighting fires. The next stop, the laboratory, and we crossed outside into the laboratory and chlorinator room, which is actually under the large water tank. After leaving the filters, the water flowed into the underground storage tank called a clear well beneath the floor of this building, which you can see by looking down through the open grating. Another important advance in water treatment technology was adopted here in 1911, when disinfection of the water with a powdered chlorine compound was begun. This was only 3 years after the process was introduced in America by the Jersey City Water Company. We really enjoyed this room as it had all the little test tubes and all kinds of interesting equipment. As we walked back outside from the laboratory, we walked down what is called the Cross Bayou, which was the original source of raw water and was the main reason for the location of the waterworks at this site. Growing demand from the city and contamination from development near the bayou soon drove the operations of the waterworks to search for better sources. A canal to nearby 12-Mile Bayou was built in 1903, but was unsatisfactory because of the bayou's course changes during river floods. Finally, in 1911, the water company reluctantly built a pipeline to the heavily silted and salt-contaminated Red River. As we were talking to the gentleman who gives tours, he mentioned that if you obtained water or needed water, which of course everybody needs water, in Shreveport back prior to 1887, you had 3 choices. That was gathering rainwater in barrels that as it rolled off your roof, buying spring water from a source in downtown Shreveport, or the worst was actually getting water out of the Red River. We thoroughly enjoyed our tour, and this is how we ended our visit, as many people who worked at the waterworks ended their day many years ago. Hope you enjoyed this Saturday Travel and History Tip. American history. Learn it. Love it. Appreciate it. Thank you.